Good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you may be. I'm Professor Hack-Polay from Academia Pro Christo, and I'm pleased to return here to share this seminar with you. And you will probably know that we are still in our seminar series entitled The Philosophy of Jesus Christ. We started the seminar series in January, and this is our fourth session. And this fourth session is within the second part, which is about the relationships that Jesus Christ wants us to have with one another. And the particular topic for today is love. If you've been with us for all this time, you will probably know that we've covered a number of topics, particularly in the first part of a seminar series entitled The Relationship with God. So our seminar series overall title is The Philosophy of Jesus Christ, and within that we set out to look at the three different themes. And the first theme was the relationships with God, according to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the second theme that we are tackling now is about the relationships that Jesus Christ wants us to one another. So there'll be 4 or 5 different topics within this second theme, but the first one of this second theme is love. So as I said a couple of weeks ago, announcing this new chapter, that will be quite challenging, and also we'll have a debate about love, and we'll tackle love in all its dimensions, and see how this appears in the philosophy of Jesus Christ. Essentially, I will be covering a number of topics as we discussed, and one of the topics will be to discuss the definition of love. So you would probably know that love has multiple dimensions in every language and culture. So we try to explore some of these dimensions, particularly from a Western perspective, because I'm using the dictionary definitions and also biblical definitions. So that would be pretty Christian-centric or Western-centric to some degree. But love is something from the heart. And yeah, I think most people will be able to recognize themselves in the definition that we'll be adopting for this particular seminar. And after defining what love is from those multiple perspectives, I will try to look at what Jesus Christ says about love, or at least what his philosophy, whether it's directly from his own mouth or from the perspective of his followers, what love is about. And we'll also try to look at, finally, the role of love in our everyday life and beyond this everyday life. So stay tuned, and let's get ahead with our definition. So I've again returned to the Oxford Dictionary that defines love as an intense feeling of deep affection. So we can see here the words are quite interesting and also quite intense. So when we look at words like intense or deep, we can probably start to see that love has a special attribute that we want to explore further. So what is love then? The definition here of the Oxford Dictionary is short. It's extremely short in essence, but it does really convey or carry extremely important human characteristics and emotions that we want to look at. So, for example, it talks about intense feeling, and the word intense means something compressed, condensed, that is very powerful in essence. And also it's deep. Deep, it goes in a way that it is almost rooted so deeply that we cannot uproot it from its deeper root. So you can see here from this definition, we've used two really interesting words to qualify the nouns that follow, that describe love. So we use the term intense to qualify a feeling that is attached to love, and we also use the word deep to qualify the affection that is attached to love. So these are important things. So it shows, as I said before, that love has a special place in life and is a special thing and is a special emotion. So those words we've captured, intense and deep, they describe similar realities, and the fact that we use them together here denote the fact that love is a special emotion that is something very special. So these words, therefore, for me, will exemplify a sense of elation or a sense of awe that comes with the feeling that we have for another person or sometimes for another thing. So then the word affection, as I say here, is not therefore an ordinary affection that we're talking about. It is qualified by these two words that are used in tandem together, therefore increases the special character that love has. So it's not a surprise that in the gospel of Jesus Christ, love appears time and time and time again. Of course, the word love itself is used only a few times, but in its characterization or description, love is used so many times in the Bible and in the gospel of Jesus Christ. So let's start with what Jesus think about love. So from Jesus' perspective, love is the greatest commandment that God has given people. So the greatest expectation that God has from people is to love. So as I said, it's not surprising, therefore, that in our previous seminars, we clearly show that the Jesus Christ philosophy altogether is really a philosophy about love. Yeah, love for God, love for people, and love for God's creation that we have. So love for God and love for one another, yeah, would therefore be central to the philosophy of Jesus Christ, because Jesus says in his own words that these are the two major or first commandment that God has for people. So when the scholars, for example, of the first century, ask Jesus Christ about what is the first commandment, what is the primary commandment that God has for people, Jesus Christ expectedly answered that love is the first commandment, and love in two dimensions. So it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your strength and with all your mind. And that is the first commandment. But then the second commandment that is like it, that is similar to the first one, is love your neighbor like yourself. So in all cases, if we say that we have 10 commandments prescribed by the law of Moses in the Old Testament, then we can see here that Jesus tried to hierarchize those commandments and put love as the top of all the commandments that God has. So love God and love your neighbor like yourself. So you can probably see why, as I said before, in the philosophy of Jesus Christ, love is central and appears time and time again. Not only in the Jesus' own words, but also and more prominently in the letters written by Paul the Apostle. So we'll look at some of these definitions and some of these descriptions by Jesus himself and also by his followers in the next few slides. So we also believe that love is special and is the greatest commandment because it is one of the words that you use a lot in the Bible. As I said formerly, it's used in about 300-400 times, depending on the translation that you use. But in essence, the description of what love is about and how we should feel about other people that can exemplify love is probably on far more than we can count. And out of the 310 times that the word love appears formally in the Bible, 183 times the word love appears in the philosophy of Jesus Christ or in the gospel of Jesus Christ, so which is the New Testament. And the New Testament has far more than half of the 300 times that love is mentioned. So this is to corroborate the evidence that we had from our previous seminar that love is central to the philosophy of Jesus Christ. So there's no doubt that this shows that the Bible is a book of love more generally, and the philosophy of Jesus Christ is primarily about love, which is many, many ramifications for our lives in our physical bodies and also in the spiritual arena, as Jesus and his followers will say. So let's go a bit further and try to look at um, what love does according to the philosophy of Jesus Christ. So the Apostle Paul, who is one of the chief architects of the New Testament, because it's written more than half of the New Testament, recapitulates on this notion of love being the primary of the most fundamental element of the commandment of God. So, for example, Paul devotes a whole chapter of his epistle, of his letter to the Corinthians, to love. And he says that love allows us to be kind. If we love one another, then we'll be kind naturally. So this is what love does. Love changes us as people. And more importantly, he puts that love elevates human beings. And if I have faith and I don't have love, then I am nothing. Yeah. So therefore, for Paul, love defines the human beings. This is what we're meant to be. We're meant to be loving and kind, and that allows us to be generous to other people. And Paul goes on in the same letter to the Corinthians to say that love allows us to forgive other people and to have a peaceful coexistence with one another. So if we have love, as I say, next door, in the next slides, as we can see here, if we have love, then some of the animosities, some of the critical evil that have happened to our societies will not happen. So, for example, the First World War that killed over 10 million people, the Second World War that killed over 30 million people, the Rwandan genocide that killed about 1 million people, the Iraqi war that killed about the same, and the current Ukrainian war and the Gaza war will not happen if we have love in our heart. So therefore, it is clear from the philosophy of Jesus Christ, particularly as conveyed by the Apostle Paul, that love defines us, but also love remedies all the evil of our society. Love can do wonders, according to Paul. So there are also different type of love. And I think I want to touch on that so people don't really misinterpret what I'm trying to convey here. That love is just love for our sister or brother or something like that. No, love has multiple dimensions that I would like to cover here. Oftentimes, people think that we have to put other people before ourselves. So that shows that we are loving. But it's not the interpretation that I have from what Jesus Christ says in his philosophy. So Jesus argues that beside the love of God, which should be above any other things, we should love ourselves. And this is a fundamental. It is the starting point. The starting point is to love yourself. Because he argues that the second great expectation that God has for people is to love yourself. And in the verse that we quoted before in Matthew, Jesus says, love your neighbor like yourself. And this sentence means that you start with loving yourself, and then because you love yourself in certain way, you will also love your neighbor. So therefore, self-love is also important in the philosophy of Jesus Christ. Now, this is not to say that Jesus says that you have to be selfish. And no, because he puts the love for self, for yourself, and the love for your neighbor on parity, yeah, at the same level. And this love for yourself is what the Greek word called philotia. Philotia is the love for yourself. And there's nothing wrong if you go around and appreciate yourself, which we don't often do, because we externalize love more than internalize love. And Jesus says here clearly that love has to be internalized. So it means that it has to be applied to yourself and first, and then you apply the same to your neighbor. So this is intertwined with, as I said, love for others. So love for yourself is clearly intertwined with love for others. And Jesus argues that love starts with yourself. Love yourself and love your neighbor. So the starting point is a love for yourself. And as a creature that's been made by God according to Jesus Christ, you have to appreciate that body and soul that God has given you. To be alive, therefore, is a privilege according to Jesus Christ, and we have to appreciate our own lives and ourselves. And then this appreciation is then carried onto other people. Then the second, in the verse that we quoted from Jesus Christ, is the filial love. The filial love, which is the externalization of love, the passing on of the love to other people. So in this notion of philia here, Jesus Christ advocates the love for others, that you have to love other people like yourself. So the intense feeling and the deep affection that we talk about in the dictionary definition that we use takes its full meaning here. That we have philotia, which is loving yourself, but we also have philia, which is loving other people, and so forth. So the affection for other people should be as intense, according to Jesus Christ, in the verse we quoted, love your neighbor like yourself. So the love that you have for other people should be as intense as the love that you have for yourself. So there's no surprises here because Jesus Christ, as we said, put love for yourself and love for others on parity. So they are exactly the same. Yeah, you love yourself, you love your neighbor because you and your neighbor are God's creation, and therefore the love should not be different. So love for others, according to the philosophy of Jesus Christ, becomes a call for action. A call for action which is clearly embedded in Paul's gospel and letters to the Corinthians that we quoted. But not just to the Corinthians, to many other churches that Paul wrote to, love was actually central because it is one of the fundamental pillars of the gospel of Jesus Christ that he professes out there. So it is a call for action, And these actions centers on forgiveness, kindness, loving, and charity, and so forth. Because you do these things for yourself, and you do this for other people too. So, an orderly society here will pretty much, according to Paul and the philosophy of Jesus Christ, depend on how deep our philia is. Yeah, philia is the love for others. So, our society will become orderly if the philia, the love for other people, is as deep as the love that we have for ourselves. And as I said before, if this happens, when this is made a reality, then we will certainly avoid war. We will avoid adultery. We will avoid, for example, murder. We'll avoid stealing, because when you steal, basically you do harm to your neighbor. And therefore, that's not a sign of love and kindness, and so forth. So a third type of love that we can also find in the Gospel of Jesus Christ is the hedonistic love. Yeah, and this notion of hedonism, yeah, can be seen from the second commandment that we have already said a few times, where Jesus says, "Love your neighbor like yourself." So this implies a kind of interdependence in which one's own happiness depends on the happiness of other people. So basically, if I make other people happy, then I will also be happy. And because I know that if other people are happy, I am happy, then we have this congruence and this intertwining of two sets of happiness. So thus, yeah, as we would argue, we need to embrace others and to do to others what you to need. You need food, you need housing, you need money, you need care and love, and other people do need that as well. So with that realization, we therefore do reciprocate love to other people. So our popular saying, basically, I mean, to go into some more grassroots or day-to-day assertion, we usually say that I scratch your back and you scratch my back. Basically, this means that my hand is not long enough to reach the middle of my back. So therefore, I realize that you need that sort of care. I do give you that care, and you give me that care as well. So there is that interdependence of care and happiness that develops because we are meant to help one another. So this is basically this what I'm trying to say here. So since I recognize that if the other person feels a certain way, feels safer, I too will feel safer. Yeah. So therefore, I try to ensure their safety and then ensure my own safety. So they are all interdependent and correlated. And there's also the Eros love. And I think, yeah, I don't want to avoid this topic because oftentimes in Christian circles and many religious places, people tend to avoid this Eros love. Eros is the love this of sexual nature, if you want. So Eros is a Greek word that describes the sexual love between a man and a woman. And it's generally not very talked about in Christian discourses or discussions. But it is also clear, and it's clearly embedded in Jesus' philosophy. And eros or sexual love is a sacred gift from God. And this is why Jesus Christ really will be very much against those people who abuse sexual activities, yeah, which he calls sexual immorality. So, for example, sex outside marriage, adultery, or sex for just a pleasure, and so for outside there is not something that Jesus Christ supports. So he vehemently discourages or bans the abuse of sex, because it is, as we said, a gift from God for people. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, really says the same thing in his letter to the Thessalonians, when he says that, yeah, man has to preserve himself for his wife, and therefore marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed should be kept holy, and God will judge the adulterers and all the sexual immorals. So it shows how important eros love is. Sexual love is very important. Is godly. It's a gift of God for procreation, and also for the delight of a man and a woman in the marriage capacity. So there's also this final type of love that we'll talk about, which is the one that Christians often talk about, is the agape love. And the agape love, as I said, is certainly the most talked about type of love in the Bible more generally, but also in the New Testament in particular. So the agape love is a love that does not seek self-interest, but it has no expectation of reciprocity. Yeah. So you do love because you love. So that type of love is unconditional. And agape, in this line of argumentation, is therefore the highest type of love in Jesus' philosophy. And Jesus makes it clear in his philosophy. Jesus feels that this is the love that God has for humanity, and this is the type of love that we too should have for God and for one another. So it's very clear in John 3, verse 16, when John says that God has himself shown people the way to love. The agape love has been shown by God. Because he says, and I quote, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that whoever believes in him does not perish, but has eternal life." So basically, God himself has already shown that, yeah, he's given us his Son to purify humanity from all the sins and forgive all our sins, and give us a ticket to heaven with no expectation. Yeah. So therefore, this is the type of love that we have to do. And John 15, verse 13 is probably, if I look at all the verses that I've quoted here, is probably the most eloquent expression of the agape love that we've been talking about. And John argues that greater basically love is great, and it's the greatest gift, and there's nothing like that. There's no other commandment that stand to love, and love allows one to lay down his life for his friends. So this is the type of agape love that we're talking about. So this is the type of love that Jesus Christ also has demonstrated himself by allowing himself to be crucified on the cross for the salvation of human beings. So Jesus did not have to die. But in the philosophy of Jesus Christ, Jesus is the Lamb of God that comes to offer himself as a living sacrifice for the forgiveness of sins. So this notion of loving and doing things for other people is pretty prominent in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the starting point is God the Father that Jesus preaches, who has given Jesus as a living sacrifice, and Jesus himself allowed himself to be crucified, therefore to be sacrificed for the forgiveness of sins with no expectation. Because if we look at the Bible, particularly the writing of Paul, God does not need our charity. He's almighty. But being almighty and holy, he's come down to make the sacrifice in order for us to be saved, to live a happy life down here and up there after our death. So, I hope you follow me so far. And we are trying to put the love as a central element, probably the most central element of Jesus' philosophy. And as a matter of fact, Paul says that the greatest of all things, of all emotion we can show, is love. So therefore, love is central to the philosophy of Jesus Christ. And we've also talked about different type of love so far. But I want you to recognize that all these type of loves are complementary. And we've got medical evidence and we've got psychological evidence that show these interconnections as well. So, for example, it's well documented that the people who experience deep sense of love in all its dimensions, all the dimensions that we talk about. So it's not just agape love or eros love or philotia love or philia love. No, or love in all its dimensions. Those people who experience a deep sense of love, either because they love somebody or they love themselves, these type of people will enjoy a better quality of physical well-being and psychological well-being as well. So, love that Jesus preaches is not love that sits abstract or in the cloud, but it has a practical application for our bodies and for our mind, and also for our spiritual life in the life to come. To conclude here, we will again see that love is central to Jesus Christ's philosophy, and this is no doubt. We've seen how many times the New Testament, so therefore the Gospel of Jesus Christ, quotes the word love. And we've also seen that love has a practical applications for our life on earth and our relationship with one another and with God. So in Christian philosophy, as we've seen throughout this seminar, other forms of love are so important, but agape love is so powerful that it can resolve all sorts of issues and afford our communities peaceful lives and great satisfaction. As I said before, World War I, World War II, the Rwandan genocide, the Sudan genocides, and the Ukrainian war, the Iraq war, the Gaza war wouldn't happen if humanity had a slight piece of love in their heart. And this is what Jesus Christ's philosophy professes, that we have to love. And once love is there, all our problems are resolved just like that. So this is the end of our seminar today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And I am Professor Hack-Polay from Academia Pro Christo. We are on Facebook and YouTube. Also, our website is there. Feel free to contact me or contact anyone talking for Academia Pro Christo on this channel for a debate. And if you have any questions on the topic of today, feel free to reach us on Facebook or YouTube and make comment, and we will certainly respond. And thank you very much for your time today. And I hope to see you next time for our second topic in this theme of relationship with one another. And our next topic on the 1st of June will be peace, yeah, which is pretty much linked to the notion of love that we explored. So we'll talk about peace on the 1st of June, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for continuing to support and to listen to Academia Pro Christo, and see you soon. I am Professor Hack-Polay from Academia Pro Christo.